Hey everyone, how you going? So my name is Lisa and I am the other part of Jamisa Stud. So the reason for my video today is that I'm going to be taking some soil samples of all our paddocks. So James and I have 160 acres here between Mundubbera and Gayndah, Queensland, Australia. And the reason that I wanted to document this is because basically it's going to be the initial stages of initiating regenerative farming here on our place. So we've had this place, which we decided to call Jamisa, obviously because it's a combination of James and Lisa, and we've had this place for a little over 12 months. It has been very dry basically ever since we bought the place. We work away 7 and 7, so effectively we're home maybe 5.5 days out of every fortnight. So it does prove challenging to be away from home all the time and also have a constant work in progress at home. So we currently have horses and a couple of cows. We have speckled park cross heifers at the moment. Obviously we want to increase our cow herd and also maintain our horse herd. We have, I think, 12 horses at the moment, which includes our imported stud Guy's First Down Fame. So I guess a little bit of a story in the background is that I've always known that there's something else that we should be doing, that there's something missing, you know, and I guess as what's commonly referred to as stewards of the land, you know, I think it's our responsibility and obligation to maintain that and improve it and help our soil and help our earth, which in turn helps us and helps our future generations. So I haven't been doing it for long, I'll be the first to admit. I've been dabbling in little bits and pieces here and there, but I didn't really know too much about it. So I think, you know, it's important for myself here is to keep increasing my knowledge and keep searching and be a seeker of all things that can help us help our I don't know whether I could call it soil just yet, but our land, our dirt, our soil, turn it back into soil. And so our 160 acres is comprised of maybe currently 8 paddocks. I do actually have 2 phones. What I'm recording on is my business phone, and this here is my personal / business phone. I'm just going to look up here and see if I can show you the app that we're currently using, and hopefully the wind doesn't blow this phone over if it ever loads. And so we really want to do the cell grazing, split our paddocks up a lot more than what they already have been. Where are we? It's not going to load for me. But basically I'm using an app called AgriWeb currently, and so this is part of my plan and my process to work in the paddocks, the sizes of the paddocks, because it splits it up. You can highlight them, you can name your paddocks, obviously you can add stock. I think currently it only has cattle and sheep. So within this app you can separate all your paddocks, you can split them up, you can change the colours, you can add troughs, you can add dams, you can add in infrastructure to a certain degree. And I think it's a really great app, and that's why I've chosen it. There were several that I did look at, but this one seemed to find the place here in Australia. And it seems to be a really good app because once you draw your paddock in the AgriWeb app, you can actually calculate, well, it calculates the size of the paddock for you. So that was paramount for me because I'm like, well, I don't really have time to be out here measuring things. So by drawing the borders of the paddocks in the AgriWeb app, it calculates the size of the paddock, which then in turn for me is going to help when we start doing the applications of vermicast or calcium or gypsum or lime or any of that kind of thing. And then of course the seeding ratio for when we do cover crops, which is in the pipeline, to help cover back up the dirt and make it soil again. So that's why I wanted an app or a program or some sort of software that was going to help me plan out what we're going to do. And I say I a lot because James is like, well, you do all this stuff. So here we are. Anyway, so it's not loading and you're not going to see it because of the sunlight anyway. That's the app that I'm using, AgriWeb, and you can use it obviously on your computer as well, which makes it's a lot easier. But when you're out in the paddock, you can do little bits and pieces on the app on your phone that also help. So it saves you writing it all down and then going back. So saying, I do have written records because I don't really trust technology. So I want to keep track of everything on paper and within the app. It's a little bit of extra work, but I think that it's well worth it. So currently I'm in what we call the olive paddock, and the reason it's called the olive paddock is because we have about between 5 and 10 acres here in this paddock that has an olive plantation. And so you can probably see in the background here, this tree over here is one of the olive trees, and they're approximately 7 to 8 years old, this plantation. So we have obviously numerous different sizes, and you could probably tell, it's browning. They're not healthy because it's so dry. So the plan with this paddock is we want to take some soil samples and we want to get an idea of what the soil is severely deficient in, so that we can add the things to help regenerate the soil in this paddock. And hopefully, they're predicting that there's supposed to be a good season. We're hoping, but at the same time we want to do things, we want to be proactive with helping get all the microbial activity under the soil, our livestock under the ground. We want to start helping it kick back in to be functioning as it should, as well as praying for rain. And so I guess the long-term goal in this paddock is we want to find out whether having all these olive trees is even going to be viable. We didn't really want to pull them out. We had a bit of a discussion about that, and James was kind of like, well, we should pull it out, and then where they've been pulled out is going to allow for the water to soak in. But since we've since learned that obviously, and there's a reason why there's so much runoff. But my argument was that I wanted to make sure that that was the right thing to do as well. So I guess ultimately we want to know whether it's viable keeping the olive trees here. If we can get the soil back to a functioning, healthy soil, maybe the olive trees are going to be beneficial for us, actually remaining here in the paddock rather than pulling them out. So that was the debate and the toss-up. So here we are, a few months down the track, where I'm going to take some soil samples in this paddock. I'm actually going to be walking around taking soil samples from all of the paddocks. Our UTV is currently broken down with a busted shock absorber, which is proving difficult to find another one that's under $500 or $600. So it's proving difficult to actually find one to fit the UTV. Anyway, so foot falcon it is, which I don't mind, because I sit in a machine and operate machinery all week at work, so it's giving me the exercise that I quite enjoy and that our bodies need for movement. But that's a whole nother story. So what I've done is I have a little wrecking bar, because obviously in quite a few of the paddocks it is compacted from previous activities, from previous livestock overgrazing. So I have this to help me dig the hole. I did actually start doing the video on my other phone, but the volume was kicking in and out, which was quite annoying for me alone, let alone somebody trying to watch this video, so I had to go and change. So I've already dug a hole here to take the soil sample, and as you can see, I've dug down probably just on 10 centimeters, and it's tight, it's compact, there's barely any grassroots system in it that you can see. It's not really crumbly, it's not really desirable, it's hard, it's tight, compact, not much is happening here. Now, one thing with all the paddocks here, what we've tried to do, and it's been difficult because we do spend time away and we do have to feed our stock and supply our stock with enough food while we're away, so that it's proven difficult to not overgraze something that's already drought stricken. It's been challenging, so we have been feeding for several months already, and by doing that we've kind of saved the ground cover that we have. Even though it looks terrible and it looks brown, we still have some form of root system here, which I think is going to help, I guess, fast track the regenerative process. That's my hope. And so all the paddocks, we've been rolling out round bales. Like, we haven't actually cleaned up the poop because we think, you know, that's an important process of mulching and going back into the soil for the underground livestock. So we haven't actually cleaned up the poop. Our plan is to kind of roll that back in for the soil. So our round bales have been getting rolled out and placed in areas where it is barer than most, so that what's left is, you know, the remainder of the bale that they've decided they don't like, or they've pooped on, or they've peed on, because horses don't like to splash their legs, obviously. They're very particular creatures. So we've been placing the round bales and rolling them out so that, you know, what is left is added coverage for that bare ground that was already kind of bare anyway. So, you know, there's small things that we can do that, whilst it might not seem like a big thing to a lot of other people, it's a small progress for us and what we can do with the time that we have and so forth. So with the points in this paddock, all I'm going to do is, I've got a couple of cans of spray paint with me, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray paint a rock at the soil sample site. So my hopes is that as we begin the regenerative process and as we begin doing things to help increase the efficiency of the soil, and by adding whatever additives are recommended to counteract the deficiencies of the soil, I had to think about that for a bit to explain it properly. When we come back in whatever the recommended time frame is going to be, so whether that's 6 months or 12 months, to see whether what we're doing is actually changing things and improving things, I want to be able to come back to the same sites that I took the original soil samples from and take another soil sample from that very sort of similar area, so that, you know, we get a better indication of whether what we're doing is helping or not. So I've got the paint to spray paint the rocks. I have the folder with all the paperwork. I have my little spade. I have my wrecking bar, and I have a bucket to carry the soil samples around in. So that's basically, I think, really all you need. I mean, they can recommend augers and all that sort of thing to do a better drill test site, but I think I'm going to get a reasonable indication by following the recommendation of digging down 100 mils and taking a bit of soil from this site and then crisscrossing across the paddock. The paddock's basically the same across the board, this one anyway. In another paddock, which we call the Brigalow paddock, we actually have a spring that travels down through the paddock. The only problem with that spring is that it is high salinity, so not much grows there. And yeah, I'm sure that we can do something to complement that factor in that paddock. But anyway, my hope with doing this video and for anybody watching it is either, you know, it's to document our progress, for one. It's to document, you know, I guess for long-term results, to see, you know, and compare with what we're doing. And it's also my hope with documenting it is to either encourage somebody else to begin their journey, or to at least start looking into what they can do to help and improve their land. It's hopefully, you know, if other people that have been doing regenerative practices for some time, if they see something that maybe we could be doing better or things that we should change, then I'd love to hear feedback, because I think, you know, if you're an open book and you're open to lots of different things, lots of different ideas, other people may have made mistakes that they can see we're making, and, you know, fast track the process by saying, hey, you know what, maybe try this, because this is what we did and it helped us a great deal, and we have similar whatever to what you have. So I think it's important to, you know, be very open-minded about everything in life, you know, because if you're closed-minded, where have you got to go? So if this helps somebody, if this helps us, fantastic. I'm doing a great job. That's the way I look at it. You know, if it encourages or helps somebody else to start their regenerative journey, then fantastic. That's a great result. So that's one reason, or the number of reasons why I wanted to document what we're doing here. And, you know, I think it'll be great if we have kids that, you know, they're able to see the process and the trials and the tribulations and all the things that we were doing to this place, you know, and hopefully they can continue that process if they wish to, you know. Or somebody that buys, maybe we'll sell it. Maybe we'll end up selling here and moving somewhere else. So, you know, there's all these fantastic records and progress trackers and information here that you could supply to somebody else. I'm really excited about it, and I actually drive James a little bit nuts because I've got all these books about soil regeneration and microbes and mycorrhizal fungi and all these different things, the earthworms. I have earthworm farms down at the house where I'm creating, well, I'm not creating, those little guys are creating, I'm just putting it all together and making it happen. So a vermicast or a vermicompost, which we're going to obviously utilise. I'm so excited about it, and I've kind of been driving him a little bit crazy with it. But you know what? So be it. I think I'm excited about this journey. I'm excited about helping our soil. I'm excited about the potential for encouraging others to do the same thing. You know, you have books like Nicole Masters has written, For the Love of Soil. Fantastic book. Gabe Brown, Alan Savory. I can't even think of all the other ones that I have, but there are so many resources. You know, there's the internet. There's just so much information out there, and we're just kind of wandering around, you know, praying for rain. The big thing with this place is that we've had, you know, a few half decent showers where we may have had an inch or a couple of inches of rain, but because the soil, dirt, I don't even really know what to call it at this point, it's not functioning properly. We've had a lot of runoff, so it's kind of been a saviour, but it's kind of like, well, there's alarm bells going off because the soil's not functioning as it should. But we've had enough runoff into our dams to a point where we haven't had to cart water, but we have maybe a month or so left of water, and we will be carting water. So it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation, but I would rather have all the soils functioning properly and not much runoff, if any, than lots of runoff, which is obviously destroying our topsoil, or what's left of the topsoil that's here, That's my understanding of it. And you know, the barer your ground is, the less chance you have of rain, because it keeps going round. Whereas if you have a soil that's functioning, if you have a lot of green cover, it actually draws that to you. Like, one of the best movies that I've seen is Kiss the Ground. So if you haven't watched Kiss the Ground, I highly recommend that you watch Kiss the Ground, and it really does open your eyes as to where the future of this planet is currently headed, you know, and the drawdown with the carbon and all the information that these guys have put together and provided in that movie is absolutely brilliant. If you then look at David Attenborough's current memoir, Life on This Planet, it's an incredible look at his history of being a wildlife narrator and documentary maker. And it's incredible to watch his journey, but it's also very, very sad and very, very alarming at watching the changes and the degradation of our soils, the desertation, the decrease in our forests, the decrease in our population of wildlife. You know, they tie in really, really well, and they really open your eyes. So I highly recommend to watch those. I highly recommend to get into regenerative agriculture groups on Facebook and see what other people are doing to help themselves, to help the planet, to help the soil, to help future generations. You know, they're talking about 60 harvests left. So when you talk in terms of harvests, it's a year. So 60 years worth of cropping and agriculture left doesn't sound like a great future to me. So I want to make sure that I'm doing my part, and that I'm doing everything I possibly can to help our planet, to help our soil, to help ourselves, to help our future generations. And that's really the crux of why I wanted to document everything. So this is Lisa. I am Lisa. This is Jamisa Stud. This is the olive paddock, and I hope that it's inspired you to do something, or look at something else, or inspired you to do something about what we're doing. I'm going to continue documenting, I'm going to continue videoing, I'm going to continue my soil samples, otherwise I'll never get anything done. I'll probably do a couple of little videos in other paddocks. I hope you've enjoyed this. I would love to hear your feedback, any kind of feedback. Drop it in the comments, send me a message, send me an email, jamisastud@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. I would love to hear about your journey. Anything. I'd love to hear from you, full stop. Thanks for watching. Thanks for taking your time. I appreciate it. Appreciate you. And I hope to hear from you real soon.